Tensions are running high and markets are all over the place ahead of this British vote next week to potentially leave the EU. The nation mourning at the same time the death of parliamentary member Joe Cox, who was murdered yesterday, and there's still some conflicting reports if the murderer actually yelled Britain first before her attacks. Nevertheless, both sides seem to be politicizing it. Now, the big question is, when the vote comes, will it hinge on emotions or will it hinge on economics? Joining me now, Mark Aesch, Nile Gardiner, and Matt Smith. Niall, let me start with you. Recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen the Leave campaign with big-time momentum, shooting up in the polls. The betting market's a little bit different, saying that ultimately the voters will vote to stay. How do you see this thing playing out?
Well, Charles, I think, as you mentioned, there's been tremendous momentum actually for the Leave campaign in favour of Brexit. On average, over the past few days, the Brexit side has been 5 to 6 points ahead. And it's a question really of whether or not the Leave campaign can maintain the momentum in the coming days. But my sense is that there's a very, very good chance that Britain is going to leave the European Union on June 23rd. This is a vote that's all about sovereignty and self-determination, the right of the British people to decide their own future in Europe and the world. And so this is a momentous, historic vote. And I'm increasingly confident that the British people will vote to leave the European Union. That's good for Britain. I think it's good for Europe. It's good for the United States as well.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, Matt. From the economic point of view, the EU created in 1993. Of course, it was an offshoot of the Treaty of Rome and the European Community. Since then, the UK has enjoyed the gross domestic product per capita up 136%. Germany, for instance, is around 86%. Even America is only 110%. Where's the argument that somehow this has harmed Great Britain economically?
Well, I think it's really worth just looking forward instead and seeing how this could really impact things. And the big concern looking forward is that there's such an amount of uncertainty surrounding this. We've already had a flavour of what we could see in terms of weakness coming through in the British pound, equity markets selling off over there, over here in Europe. The real risk is of contagion spreading here and the unravelling of the Eurozone and another country leaving after the UK if they do leave. And so the real concern going forward is that this is going to cause a great amount of uncertainty. Right. Regardless of how things have been in the past.
All right, so Matt, but you would like to see a stay vote, but you're saying it's the devil you know better than the devil you don't know. You're not actually making the argument that it's economic or even emotional or controlling borders or any of this stuff, sovereignty. You're just saying it might just be wiser to stay the course, status quo, rather than take a chance.
I'm not making an opinion, Charles, on whether the vote is going to pass or not. I'm simply making the case that if it does, that's going to cause a huge amount of confusion, uncertainty in the markets, which will ultimately be to the detriment of equity markets, right, to the detriment of US-based commodities such as oil.
Hey, you know what? The Boston Tea Party caused a lot of confusion, too, for a while. But ultimately, Mark, it worked out pretty good for some of us, huh?
And exactly to that point of the Boston Tea Party, I mean, you look at it, the first American Revolution was about taxation without representation. I think what we're watching play out in England, and arguably here today, Charles, as well, is this issue of taxation without performance. And that's really the issue that's at play here. If government was a restaurant, we would say, well, the food's not very good, and the service is kind of lousy, but at least it's expensive. People are just weary of government's inability to deliver the fundamental things that government is responsible for. I think that's what we see playing out in England. I think we see it playing out in America today.
And that's what you talk about in your book, right? Saving America?
That is exactly right.
All right.